Welcome back to This Is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Commander, Tough Rules, and Cool Interactions, episode 143. Today's episode is going to be a doozy of an episode, as it will be covering everyone's favorite super confusing aspect of Magic, and that is, of course, the layers system. I have touched on layers in many past episodes because it's just that much of a confusing system in certain situations, and we'll be covering a few of those situations in this episode, specifically in regards to one of the new legendary creatures that we got from one of the Bloomburrow Commander decks. Fans of bonus questions, I've got a few at the end of this episode. Now let's jump into it. Bello, Bard of the Brambles, has a single ability, but it is a mouthful. It has the static ability that says, during your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with a mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types and has indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Okay. The first scenario is this. Your opponent controls Bello, and you want to stop them from killing you with all of their animated artifacts and enchantments. So you enchant their Bello with your Darksteel Mutation, which is an aura that says, enchant creature, and then, enchanted creature is an insect artifact creature with base power and toughness 0/1 and has indestructible, and it loses all other abilities, card types, and creature types. The obvious goal here is that by making the Bello lose all other abilities, it will not have its static ability anymore, and this will mean on the Bello player's turn, their larger artifacts and enchantments will be just that, and not also be creatures to attack you. But that is not the case, and the Bello player will still have animated artifacts and enchantments that do have haste and indestructible and that triggered ability, and you've actually probably just helped the Bello player out because you've now made their Bello indestructible as well. So now let's figure out why this aura that says the creature loses all other abilities doesn't cause the Bello to lose its only other ability. First things first, we must know what the layers are. There are 7 of them in total, and they are copy, control, text, type, color, abilities, and finally, power and toughness. When we look at Bello's ability, we will see that it makes the enchantments become elemental creatures. These are type and subtype, which is layer 4. It will give them 2 keyword abilities and a triggered ability, so that's clearly abilities, which is layer 6. And then finally, it sets their power and toughness to 4/4, which is applying in layer 7, the power toughness layer. Next, we look at the mutation. And it has all 3 of the same layers. Layer 4 by setting the enchanted creature to be an insect artifact creature and removing the other types. Layer 6 by giving it indestructible and removing other abilities. And then layer 7 by setting it to be a 0/1 creature. So both of these cards' effects apply in the same 3 layers, which means that we now need to understand how these layers function. And there are 2 very specific aspects to this. The first aspect is timestamps. Since these abilities are applying in the same layer, layer 4, type changing, then we have to look at their timestamps to see which ability applies first. The Bello is out first, and then the mutation is attached to it. So the mutation will have the more recent timestamp. But this makes it seem like it should have the result of removing Bello's ability, then if its effect will be the most recent timestamp. So now we need to take a look at the other aspect of layers. For this, we will take a look at the comprehensive rules in section 613.6 that says, if an effect should be applied in different layers and/or sublayers, the parts of the effect each apply in their appropriate ones. If an effect starts to apply in one layer and/or sublayer, it will continue to be applied to the same set of objects in each other applicable layer and/or sublayer, even if the ability generating this effect is removed during this process. So what this means is that Bello's ability and the mutation ability apply in 3 different layers, layers 4, 6, and 7. So once they start to apply in their first respective layer, layer 4, they will continue to apply any of those subsequent layers, and also that they will continue to apply no matter if they are somehow removed in any other layer, like the layer 6 ability layer. I know that this might still be confusing for a lot of folks to wrap their heads around, so let's break it down part by part in these 2 abilities. Bello is out first. Now the mutation has been attached to Bello. So Bello applies first, adding the creature elemental type to all of your large artifacts and enchantments. Then, the more recent timestamp mutation applies, and it overrides Bello's types to be an artifact, creature, insect with no other types. Now we move on to the next layer and apply, in which is layer 6, the abilities layer, and Bello will add haste, trample, and the triggered ability to the same objects that it applied to before. And then the more recent timestamp mutation will apply and override the Bello so that he now has indestructible, and then it will remove all other abilities, like its static ability. And then finally, we move on to the last layer that they apply in, which is layer 7, the power and toughness layer, and Bello will set the power and toughness of the objects that it applied to before to being 4/4s because CR 613.6 stated that it will continue to apply. If it applied in a previous layer, it'll continue to apply in other layers, even if removed. And then the mutation will override Bello and set his power toughness to be 0/1. Does this make intuitive sense? No. It's literally an enchant creature that makes the creature lose its abilities, and yet the Bello will still end up keeping its ability. But that's just the way the layer system works in Magic. And maybe I'll make a video on the why layers are the way they are one day, but for now, let's change up our scenario so that you do get the desired effect and the expected result, the intuitive result. Song of the Dryads is an aura that says, enchant permanent, and then it also says, enchanted permanent is a colorless forest land. And that's it. So in looking at this effect, we can see that it applies in 2 layers. The first layer that it applies in is layer 4, the type-changing layer, as it makes the attached permanent into a forest land. And then it applies in layer 5. It makes the object colorless. Do you notice anything missing from the text of this song? It doesn't include the text that the enchanted permanent loses any abilities like we do see on the mutation. So how does an aura that says the thing it's on loses all other abilities not make that thing lose its one ability, and then an aura that doesn't say anything about it losing its abilities does actually cause that thing that it's on to lose its previous abilities? This is all to do with the type that the auras are changing their objects into, the things that they're attached to. For the mutation, it's changing a creature into a creature. Not much of a change there, but with the song, it's being changed into a forest, and it doesn't say the wording of in addition to its other types. So it is just becoming a forest. And so it's just straight up a forest, and forests have no abilities other than the intrinsic ability the game has granted to them to tap for a green mana, and no other abilities on it. So while the ability layer, layer 6, is the layer that things are adding and removing abilities, in the case for the song, it is actually in layer 4 when the card is being set to a forest. That is when it will end up losing its previous ability and gaining the new intrinsic mana ability that forests have. This stuff is really screwy, and I hope that this has all mostly made sense for everyone. So, bonus question time. Yeah, bonus question time. 2 bonus questions, in fact, or actually might end up being more. First one. If we were to use Imprisoned in the Moon in place of either the mutation or the song, what would be the result? Imprisoned is an aura that says, enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. And then it says, enchanted permanent is a colorless land with tap, add colorless, and loses all other card types and abilities. So would it lean more towards the same result of the mutation and have Bello still turning all of your things into creatures? Or would it lean more towards the song and shut off your Bello? Or would there be some other answer, maybe I haven't covered in here, like a hybrid of the two scenarios or something else perhaps? And then bonus question number 2. You cast Amphibian Downpour, which is an aura with flash, and it also has storm. And then it says enchant creature. And then enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1. Let's say you had a high enough storm count to copy it enough times for there to be a downpour for every one of your Bello opponents' artifact and enchantment creatures that have been animated to become creatures by their Bello. Would this cause those animated creatures to become 1/1 blue frogs with no haste or indestructible? Or would they still be 4/4 elementals with haste and indestructible and have that triggered ability? If your answer is that they would be 1/1 blue frogs, then a follow-up question. What would happen to them if your opponent were to flicker, exile, and return their Bello? Would this change anything? And then one last follow-up question. If Bello were to be destroyed, then would all of the downpours fall off of the artifacts and enchantments? It is Bello that made them initially be creatures in the first place, and the downpour does specify that it can only enchant a creature. So if Bello goes away, would they all fall off of those objects as they're not allowed to be enchanted onto something that is not a creature? Okay, that's actually like 4 bonus questions. Format your answers however you would like. Either, bonus question 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you want to do 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, whatever, however you want to do it, I'll figure it out. I can kind of, gauge things. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about the legitimately crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta. Like seriously, even when you know the answer, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense if you know the rules, but just, from a practical standpoint, like trying to explain to this to somebody that's just starting the game, and obviously nobody that just is starting to play the game you would ever try to explain this to, but it's like, the thing that literally says they lose abilities doesn't cause them to lose abilities, and the thing that literally doesn't include any text that says that they lose abilities causes it to lose abilities. What a weird thing. So, all right. Yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. It's a doozy. Quite a doozy. All right.